Um, Before we do, I think anybody disagree with me, it's probably worth doing introductions, like a round robin, quick as possible, but within the kind of rules of engagement that we've been setting across our meetings over time.
Thank you, David. I'll go first. I'm Dr. Jack Crumley. I'm a associate professor in management at Tuskegee University. So very happy to be here. Looking forward to next steps.
Eliza?
Awesome. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Eliza Garcia. I'm ASAP's program coordinator. I'm located in Southern Oregon. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about more about this group today.
Nicole?
My name is Nicole Kane. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I'm a doctoral student researching high heat housing and older adults.
Jackie?
Hi, I'm Jackie Lambiers, and I recently retired as a professor from TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. And I'm currently going to still for a few years run a program for city and county and school district communicators. So I'm really interested in listening and things like that. So I'm super happy to be part of this group.
Ben?
Hey, Ben Snyder here. I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel. I'm currently on a pretty extended paternity leave, but most recently I was working on the city of Tel Aviv's adaptation planning, studying how they're handling energy, transportation planning, and power generation planning under climate scenarios. Thanks.
Thank you. Apologies if I get folks' names wrong. Dina?
You got that one right. I'm Dina. I am based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I work in kind of climate policy research, various places. I also run the professional opportunities in adaptation group, if you ever have been to that. So thanks.
Elsa?
Hi, I'm Elsa Soderberg. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Michigan for sustainability and urban planning, and I am currently in the Pacific Northwest region and looking for jobs in planning and environment.
Go blue. Anna?
Hi there. My internet's a little bit slow today. Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Anna Kazmarek. I'm with NOAA's Office for Coastal Management, a resilience specialist based out of Charleston, South Carolina.
And looks like having some connection difficulties. We'll invite everyone to share their information, as Jackie mentioned in the chat, if you're having issues hearing. Pavali?
Hi, I'm Pallavi Mande, and I am the Director of Climate Resilience at BSC Group. We are a multidisciplinary engineering firm, but have been looking to do a lot of work in the climate resilience space at a watershed level. I formerly worked for the Charles River Watershed Association, and my background is in urban planning, design, and environmental policy. And I'm joining you all from Boston, Massachusetts, which is on the traditional lands of the Nipmuc, Wampanoag, and Massachusetts people. Really nice to be here.
Thank you. Maida?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Maida Owens. I'm the Louisiana State folklorist. The Folklife program participates in the Bayou Culture Collaborative, which focuses on including the human dimension in state planning.
Amazing. Kevin?
Hey, I'm Kevin Atchison. I'm in Central Illinois. I'm driving. I'm the chairman of the Central Illinois chapter of Climate Reality. I have a background in healthcare and in public health, and I'm interested in environmental planning and policy and environmental stewardship.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Be safe, and happy that you can come and listen to us here today. There is some kind of effort to have folks engage through the Jamboard. Always feel free to reach out to us after this event if you have trouble kind of utilizing the phone while the program goes on. And Solange.
Hello, everyone. My name is Solange. A master's student in the Community Climate Adaptation Program at Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I have a background in environmental chemistry, global health, and climate adaptation. I'm interested in environmental planning, consulting, and the intersection of global health and climate change issues. And I would say that, for my future career, I'm mostly interested in starting with hopefully nonprofit or environmental consulting companies. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone that's attended the last two meetings where we've been working on culminating our concept behind how community-based participatory research and other public engagement plays an important part in both our studies as professionals and also the delivery of our projects and programs. Today, we're going to be sharing a presentation. I'll put it in the chat. I think that's okay to do. It'll be useful for you to have access to that as it provides some feedback on what we've learned the last two meetings and kind of what our plan is to move forward today in a very hopefully conversational tone. So I'm going to share my screen. Please, anyone, let me know if there's technical issues. Hoping that you can see my screen in the very near term. And I'm going to go into presentation mode. Oh, wrong button. Everyone knows where we are. And today we're going to be discussing some high-level items just to familiarize the group with the core concepts in case you've missed meetings in the past. The reason why we're kind of revisiting our guiding principles now is because we're hoping to make some decisions on what the future holds during today's meeting. What the future holds includes what our potential outputs could be from this group. This is more general over the course of the life of the group as we grow and mature as a team, as people that have been meeting with regularity. But mostly it's an opportunity for us on the call today to join in and capture and share ideas in the chat or otherwise. So today we've set some very specific goals, which is one, we want to set the goals for the group. We want to identify some potential longer-term outputs and resources. And we also just want to generally capture topics you want to engage in during future meetings. I think we're almost at the halfway point. Correct me if I'm wrong, team. We do have the Jamboard where we'll be putting ideas up and running. I'll put that QR code on the screen. Please do let us know if you have any issues using QR codes or those types of materials. Any questions today? Feel free to shout. Hearing none. The member-led interest groups, which is what, if you're not familiar, this is what we are. Our group is MLIG. We're member-led. We're virtual groups where ASAP members come together to discuss and advance adaptation topics in a supportive, pure environment. They're really important. I won't read this directly to y'all, but just the biggest takeaway is that we are really trying to kind of take a step in the direction where we create content that will be useful for other members over time. So we want these meetings to be whatever we want to create as a team, but we do want to have a tangible outcome in the next year and moving forward. This group in particular is working to really tie the idea of, let's go straight here, people, homes, and the things we love. We really want to center on people first and foremost, homes, which are people's primary asset, but also community. During the course of kind of giving a definition to our identities in this group, we're trying to kind of shift power to people and communities focused on the worst consequence of climate change. Many of those constituencies are constituencies that us in this group represent. Over the last two meetings, and again, I won't read the bullets from this slide, but we self-reported and we shared some information that some of the methodologies related to community-based participatory research, more generally kind of the work, the great work that's being done in academia, with regard to being inclusive and thoughtful and action-oriented and results-driven, is something that's really important. And it's also important for us to understand that there's lots of different perspectives and points of view, and the core purpose of this group is to work to bring that multiplicity of opinion and point of view to the table so that no one is left behind. In my opinion, in my experience across our meetings, the concept of nothing about us without us truly resonates with me. There are a lot of existing mechanisms that work. One that we discussed in great detail in our last meeting, but a lot of great expertise in trying to be able to incorporate all voices and as many demographics as possible. Still a lot of work to do, still a lot of learning to do. We really want to wrap our arms around that on this call. These quotes right here are right from our meetings, where we identified like where we were coming from, also what we said, right? And I will read through this one, that this type of work gives communities autonomy over policy decisions, that no one knows the community better than the community themselves, the criticality of listening, the importance of research fatigue and there being a pile of reports, but no real tangible fundamental change. A lot of us are involved in community adaptation, and I pasted a couple of these twice, apologies for that. But these types of comments that we make in the chat really do resonate with the leadership team. And we've also identified some existing capacity within the group that we already work with the community, this team, not to characterize you, engage through the school system, where we understand how people understand, that we have deep expertise in issues like climate change that could be of benefit to our communities and the vulnerable within our communities. We also work to make sure, like in the planning profession, that everyone is at the table, that you have a knock on every door policy, and that ultimately that we create systems that actively involve people and homes and community in decision-making and drafting and testing of solutions and accounting for traditional knowledge from the community and research. And again, I didn't make these up. I took these from the comments we made in the last two meetings. Finally, to begin and end with trust, we need time and funding and time to listen and core ambitions like UBI and consistency and patience and other methods to overcome power dynamics and to give priorities of the goals that we share. So reflecting on that, we'd like to talk with the group. I think this is a pretty good time. For you though, for those of you that aren't part of the policy practice member-led interest group, this is a bit of a pitch for them. I'm not an active member of it, but it's one of my favorite. When I am able to call in, it's one of my favorite groups. And it's definitely one of my favorite groups in terms of the material that they as a team create. I use the policy tracker in particular with regularity, but this MLIG in particular points to us towards the substantial changes that ASAP is calling for in our disciplines and communities. So it's a really kind of good way to keep up to date with the hot topics, if you will. And we want to create outputs in this group that are also usable, tangible products that ASAP as a whole can use, not just the folks, y'all, that show up for this call. This includes a variety of things like white papers and blog posts, which might be low-hanging fruit, but also kind of case studies and harder stretch reach type exercises that we would definitely need everyone on this call to help and provide feedback on to make sure that we do it right. So this is the Jamboard. I will also put this in the chat if someone hasn't already done that. Let's pull that up. Nicole, did you want to take the screen? Or do you want me to share?
Yes, I can share mine. So if you just wanted to make sure people are able to get into the Jamboard who are not on their phone. So if people on their phone, just listen along with this today. But just wanted to make sure some nods. I see some nods. We're able to get in. Okay, cool. So I can do a brief tutorial about the Jamboard. So basically our goal today is that we're trying to understand the deliverable for the group, produce at the end of the year. And things are evolving as the needs of the group are becoming more clear. And so what we wanted to do is take a pause with our kind of regularly scheduled speaker series and internal conversations that we've been having to just reset and say, okay, what's useful for the group as a whole? What do we need? What do you need? What would be most helpful? And David points to the policy group because honestly, we're really impressed by the stuff that they do. And we look at them and think, ooh, could we do that? Maybe. So it just depends on what our group needs as a whole and really what our capacity is too. So with all that said, what the purpose of the Jamboard today is pie in the sky, ideal, what would help you in your role right now? What would be most helpful? So I'm going to share the Jamboard and I'll show you, give a little brief tutorial about how to use it. Let me make sure I can share my screen. Okay, so here's I'm going to look over here because that's where my big screen is. So here's the Jamboard, and the way you use the Jamboard, over on the left-hand side, there's a little sticky note, the fourth one down. When you click the sticky note, you can type something in. It doesn't matter what color, you can choose any color you want. And get this bar out of my way. And so from here, you can move this around and you can make it a different size. Oops, you can twirl it, I guess, too. But the idea is where we put your sticky note is going to be the most important thing. So I have this matrix here of a high urgency need, but maybe a low importance. So it would go down here, high urgency, high importance. Of course, this block here is what we're going to be looking for as tangible things that we need, maybe high importance, but low urgency. Maybe it's a long-term issue. Low urgency and low importance, of course, we're not going to do. So there's that. All right. So from that, does anyone have any questions about what the goal is of this project, the Jamboard right now, or how to use it? All right. So as co-leaders, we're going to be putting things in too. So let's take a solid 10 minutes. Feel free to turn your video off if you'd like, and we'll come back after this and we'll talk about them.
I'm sorry, Nicole, can you repeat what you just said?
Sure. So the goal of the Jamboard is to understand what we want as a group for deliverables. And so we've been having mainly kind of a speaker series every month and then group discussion. And so this is a kind of a pausing point in the year just to say, hey, what do we want? What would be most useful from the group for the group?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we're continuing to write and you're maybe looking at some of the other ones that are up on the board, if you agree with one and you're like, yes, that, open it up and do a +1. And there can be many +1s, and that'll help give us an idea too of the interest in those as well. Great, thank you everyone. So we're wrapping up and you'll continue to have access to this Jamboard. So as the co-leaders, as we're looking at what our deliverables are going to be, we'll continue referencing this. So please feel free to go in and add things if you'd like. If you think of something later, that's completely fine. So it looks like the most needed ideas are best practices, understanding case studies, tangible tools for doing this work in the community. As people were putting things in, does anyone want to talk about one of their sticky notes that they put up, and opportunity to elaborate a little more? Or the folks who weren't able to access the board today too, please feel free to share. Go ahead and just unmute and go for it.
I can comment on what I wrote for mine. As like a young career professional, I'm always interested in learning more about others' experience, especially with these issues as I start my career. And I think it's just really beneficial to share different approaches and what people have experienced as well.
I can add to that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'll add to that just because I think it really builds on what you were saying, Elsa. I wrote the green one at the bottom about seeking out people who are new to the adaptation field to help write the deliverables, especially people who may have that experience working in community groups, but not in a professional role. I think having your name on something early in your career, even if it's a blog post or a case study or a white paper, is really gold to people when you're early in your career, and you can have that as something to show people. So I think that works both ways and a really mutually beneficial.
I'll riff on why that's important to me. Because when you're in industry, a rising tide raises all boats, right? When the quality of deliverables goes up, it means the quality of the discipline is improving, right? And there's all sorts of innovative tools and methodologies. I often joke that it went from this process where you would have to do frenzied Googling to find research or shape files about things like interdependencies, right? Very basic community resilience stuff. You'd have to look everywhere. Now, because it's in the zeitgeist, because it's trending for the moment, doesn't last, right? People were talking about building envelope for 3 years, and people don't talk about building envelope like they used to, right? So how do we harness this moment in time to raise the body of knowledge so that when you're a leader, you're not trying to find people with experience that's just a blog post? We want people to be actively engaged. Something that I would like to riff off is we're doing great work in ASAP already, right? We're volunteering already. How can we better volunteer for programs like that library program, Eliza? Right? How can we make our time spent something that benefits the community as a whole? And I'll take that offline with y'all, but super great. Love to train people up, right? And love to make it just easier to go, because it went from that kind of needle, and it went from there's no needles to finding the right needle in a haystack. Google has made it particularly difficult, right? If you don't have a university logon, right, getting at the truth can be very difficult. You got to click 3 pages deep in Google now to get a practical kind of how do you do community-based participatory engagement, right? You got to go pretty deep.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can maybe build on that comment. As somebody who's been working in the Northeast for the most part very much in the Boston metro area. And I think for me, the value, in addition to everything that was already covered, is to have a sense of, at least in the US, where certain regions are in terms of this conversation and kind of best practices, I suppose. And I was just going to put in a plug for another ASAP meeting that's going to start at 3, where I am presenting as part of a group of folks talking about resilience and potential projects around retreat from a South Asian city globe perspective. And so the idea there is to, again, get a comparative lens to look at, what does community-based engagement look like, and, where those commonalities are, or, where there are stark differences in terms of comparing the two contexts. So I just wanted to sort of say that, since I haven't been able to put in my 2 cents on the preferences, the Jamboard. Thanks.
And if you had 5 words to describe that, I'll just put them in the Jamboard for you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I would say comparative analysis of processes and methodologies, I suppose, of community based resilience planning. I know it's more than 5 words, but
that's okay.
Okay, you can choose which 5 words you want to use. Thanks.
I can also
go on.
Sorry, apologies, I got booted earlier, but my request was suggestions on how federal agencies can provide technical support. I'll provide that perspective, I guess. We produce a lot of these things that we're talking about here, so I felt the best would be ASAP has such a good job at connecting and hearing things and bringing people together. And obviously, I think people have mentioned there's a lot of money coming out of the federal government right now, and we are overwhelmed with trying to, send out that money, make sure it goes to the right people, and then also eventually provide the support that is, has been mandated, which of course is important, but I struggle at times to make sure that my office doesn't do a top-down approach of like, here's how we're going to provide technical assistance because this is how we think we should do it. So if at any point anyone has recommendations, I know people might be working with these communities or are employees at these communities themselves. It's always great to hear ways that our office or any other, I don't think that's just for NOAA, and that could be, I'm sure, plenty of these federal agencies that I know FEMA has their big technical support. I can't remember the name of what they're calling it, but they're kind of rolling out a pretty big and have hired some people on. So at any point, NOAA or otherwise, hearing how we can best utilize this money is always, especially from helping people that receive the grants that we're sending out. I think my office is about to accept a lot of the first round of grant applications. I think of about $500 million. So we want to make sure that money is not only used well, but we hope that we make sure the people that hear about it and use it are supported to whatever extent we can. So I'll leave it there.
And it's so important to have both top down and bottom up, right? And if we talk, just you being here helps us meet in the middle, right? So there's a real opportunity for us to kind of share. I put the EPA brownfields TAC on chat. I'll put FEMA's on in a second. My number one advice to a young professional would be get familiar with your local TACs and tabs, and they know more than anybody, right, about the boots on the ground reality. And that's how you the truth is through the technical assistance teams. I often still be like more than happy to connect and share with you. Worst case, you go to a conference and talk to them. and they're always willing to chat. Let's read through the ones in the top right corner, I guess, right? Because those are generally, people feel free to move things to the top right corner so that we know, like, oh, man, this is like super important, right? If you looked at one of them, or if you're reconsidering where you put your own, don't be afraid to make it a priority for this group. And in order to make it a priority for this group, you need to move it into the upper right-hand corner. So it seems like knowledge curation and sharing is the win in this situation.
Yeah, in my mind, this lends itself to a library, a tool library, a resource library, something like that, that maybe we could have landed on our ASAP page, similar to how the policy group has organized theirs. I think the thing to keep in mind too, as we're so impressed and trying to emulate what the policy group has done, they've been doing this for what, 3 years now? I think this is their 4th year, and this is our very first year. So I think we're, I feel like in my gut, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but we'll go with it, is I feel like we're on the right track. Like, we have the interest, we have the organization, and we have some ability to put these things together with our core volunteer group. And I think it's there are definitely opportunities too for other active members who are interested in being more active as a volunteer, as we're working to put these things and these resource libraries together. So if you are interested in helping spark, something sparked to you and you're interested in helping more, please let us know. There's absolutely room for especially now as we're building up what we want to have as a deliverable at the end of the year.
David, I don't know, or Nicole, I don't know if it might be helpful just to share for a few minutes what our group was talking about earlier this week in terms of an opportunity to provide some leadership for some sessions or a session at the National Adaptation Forum, which some of the people in the Zoom room right now might be part of. And one of the ideas that we had floated out, kind of based on this group and all of the good feedback that many of you have already given us, and some of the feedback that you've given us today on this Jamboard, is to try to come up with resources or a knowledge base or story mapping or case studies. Some of this would tie in with some of the comparative stuff that Pallavi was, I think, talking about, or somebody earlier was talking about. And so we might have a chance to help lead a session about this very topic that we're talking about today, like what's important to our group and what kind of resources would be useful to us, and to actually ask people to submit ideas for that. So of course you could submit them for our group to talk about in our upcoming meetings later this year, but it might also be an opportunity for somebody in the room right now to think about doing a formal presentation next May at the National Adaptation Forum that will be part of our group. And so this is another way that I think we can gain some momentum for the ideas that we share here about how we think about everybody in the community. How do we get everybody involved? How do we quit getting people in our organizations to say people are hard to reach, when really it's us who are hard. We're hard to reach, right? They're not hard to reach, but we are hard to listen, I guess, to them. And so what we're interested in is trying to collect that knowledge from all of you. If you've run any of these programs of engagement with these types of communities, we would love to hear those failure stories, those success stories. How do we get better at this? And then how do we scale it across lots of types of organizations? There's a lot of people in the room today who work for cities. That's what I'm interested in. I work with a lot of communicators for cities, counties, and school districts. But we want to, include companies and nonprofits and government. So it'd be nice to figure out how we could build a sharing network like that. So I'm excited about some of our future programs for this group later this year, but also for that opportunity next May. And I just wanted to let you all know to be watching for some of that information coming from ASAP, because ASAP is going to be one of the organizers of that national meeting in May. So that I'm excited about those opportunities, and just wanted to make sure people kind of were listening for that coming up in the next few months.
Yeah,
100%.
thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
are we at
I
time?
just wanted to, no, I just wanted to mention something that for, I think a lot of these ideas for outcomes and outputs, I don't want it to seem like we are like thinking of like extra work or extra things for us to do. A lot of it is just paneling and finding a home for all of your stories or experience, all the lessons that you've learned or that you're still wanting to learn. So I think I think all of the ideas that you all are coming up with is great. And I think it is kind of focusing on that peer learning aspect, which I think is why a lot of us are here and are joining today. So when thinking of outputs or things that you want to do, I think, resource library, the story mapping, really just thinking of ways and avenues that you all can share your ideas and what you know, and also to provide a place that other people, outside of the network in those communities can go to find that information, but can also add in their own information and just creating that home for peer learning, really centered in, community-led adaptation.
100%. And I'm going to add that, like, the ability for people to creating a participatory environment, I think is super important. And one thing, don't be afraid to share your material in the library. After some pretty extensive research, we discovered that, for example, the healthcare discipline already has some good methodologies and practices that we can kind of repurpose, given that some of our core goals are protecting people, right? So we know that there's this cross-discipline learning that's also an opportunity to embrace and share. And what I'm learning from, everyone that's been participating and that's showed up is, I used to just describe that as like adaptation professionals, emergency managers, and urban planners, right? To insert myself into that triumvirate. It's actually much wider and much deeper. So it's don't be afraid to share. We'll curate the library in some way that's logical, but we want to cast a wide net. Special thanks to Sylvia for keeping us on track all the time. Really being able to make sure that we're able to get to these meetings with formal content. I was wondering, did you want to kind of chime in on some of the work that we've done to date, some of the priorities that we've been chatting about on our meetings? Just wanted to kind of give you a moment if you if you have it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, David. Just based on our conversation today, I am really excited to hear everyone's thoughts on things that they think they need currently for the field, but also for them to do the work in adaptation. So I'm really excited to just identify some ways we can work together, collaborate together to create something that can be used within our group, but also within the adaptation field as well. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Hoping to hear from some of the members of the group here today. If y'all have any kind of thoughts or commentary on the work that we've done to date and the path forward. Not hearing from you scares me, because this is a group that's mostly intended to capture consensus in terms of our plan and orientation. So is there a way that would be easier or better to communicate? Should we have online surveys? Is leaving the Jamboard open kind of the best path forward? Is email better, right? I've found recently people like to be part of really long and extensive email chains, whereas that's like something I've been trying to eliminate from.
Hey, David, this is Jack Crumley. I would agree with you. However, I think getting a consensus of what people like to do in regard to communicating is important. Again, I like boards as well. But I also think that vision is also important. So if people see progress, whether that's in an email or not, or in a newsletter or whatever else, I think that progression is a suggestion because unfortunately, out of sight is out of mind, and we all have day jobs, etc. So I think that number one, having a board and then that consistent communication is important. So if anybody agrees, you can give me a thumbs up or whatever else. But again, it's I think that's with all the without I don't want to say distractions, but just additional duties. As you hear my phone ringing in the back, has an impact on us. So I'll stop.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of build on that, given that I had already spoken, so I wasn't trying to hog the mic, but I just wanted to say that, you know, everything I've heard so far, I am absolutely in favor of. But I also wanted to note that, you know, the work being done, say, you know, in other groups, you already mentioned the policy one, which I've had some interaction with, but not as much as this group. But there's also a JEDI advisory group, I suppose that's what it's called. And I found, you know, those conversations to be really helpful too, just in terms of incorporating sort of, again, best practices or, you know, understanding kind of the underpinnings of a lot of this work when it comes down to community based planning was really helpful for me. So to the extent we can prioritize that, you know, whether we call it, you know, JEDI based or, you know, just understanding kind of the nuances when it comes to, you know, which community you're working in or what context you are dealing with, that to me is really helpful. And maybe that's what we can talk about from a case study perspective, you know, comparative case study. But also I feel like there are theoretical frameworks that are created for that kind of research. And I really appreciate knowing a lot more about those. Thanks.
One thought that I had is during each of the calls, we will kind of open it up to the floor to share materials and resources. So there'll be a really quick and easy way to share something that you read or otherwise. We'll break off and we'll think about mechanisms for knowledge sharing. We'll also try to think a little bit about organization. You know, we don't want to overthink it. We want it to kind of evolve naturally in terms of what we find. We've already collected some materials as part of this process to date, and we'll start to pepper things, always looking for volunteers, always looking for folks to lead the charge and make sure that all perspectives and point of views are being represented. No pressure, but the more we work together, the better the resources will be. We as a leadership team are committed to do this work over the course of the next year. We have some activities underway already, right? So we're going to kind of continue to progress as usual. We'll break off and get back together with everyone, and we'll also kind of throw out some suggestions based on what we learned here today. I think it's been a useful kind of exercise to go through the idea of what community-based planning actually does across discipline and across community. I hope that you all took something away from the last two sessions. And I think that there's still opportunities for us to capture great speakers, right? And bring people to the table from all different disciplines and experiences. Consider this an open call to you and your colleagues and allies, right? If you have anybody that you think needs to speak to this team, we're going to continue to get after it. We're going to have an action-oriented spur based on the conversation that we had here today. It seems very logical path forward to me, which is to share the knowledge that we think will be beneficial and over time help us curate and let us know what you have interest in. And I'll also create an enormous email chain, and we'll see how that works out. I'll put everyone in BCC. Please reply to me directly if you don't want in. So thank you for your time and your consideration on that exercise.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments, criticalities, missed opportunities?
I'm going to say one thing. I don't know if we need to do a BCC because I see all these wonderful people. I think this is, if I missed previous meetings, my apologies, but I'm just seeing from people from all walks of life. This is very, very interesting. So I think I've already reached out to some of you on LinkedIn. So hopefully you will connect back with me. So I hope, I think this knowing each other and knowing our communicating is important. Also, seem like we're all here for climate change, etc. And I'm here from a business perspective because I know I studied in the area of supply chain management, and I know we know that carbon footprints and reducing those carbon footprints are critical. So looking forward to working with everyone. I'm interested in the space in regard to how innovation or thoughts can improve the climate. So again, looking forward to it. Hopefully we can get everyone's email and information so I can learn more about you. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll start with the BCC. And if you want to opt in and say, put me in the 2 field, I want to strengthen the ties in my network, we'll take that action.
Thanks so much, David, and the rest of the volunteer team. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to learning more.
We're looking forward to it too.
Awesome.
Thanks for the time. We'll give you back 2 minutes today.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye, y'all.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.